Good evening and welcome to Wisdom Fire, a series being presented for shamanic songs, drummings, teachings, storytellings. The topic for today will be the nature of power, its principles and practices. Shamanically, when we refer to power, we're speaking of life force charge, collected and concentrated life force charge. By the word power, we're not referring to manipulation or control of another, of status, nor are we referring to energy, such as you might hear being discussed in energy healings or feeling the energy of something. Energy and power are two fully different states of natural forces, of which a third is physical matter. Each have their own natural laws that regulate their flow, their movement, their dynamic. Let me begin with energy. In dealing with energy, it's important to understand that where you have two fields of energy, the field with a greater intensity of charge will flow to the field with a lesser intensity of charge. You can envision that as two batteries, one dead, the other fully charged. And you put their poles together, and the fully charged battery will drain into the dead one until half of its charge is transferred until they reach a point of stasis, of equilibrium. So the more intense will flow to the less intense until equilibrium is achieved. In the healing arts, you have acupuncture, shiatsu, Reiki, polarity therapy, because the nature of energy is that of polarity. You have north and south poles of magnet, electrons and protons, like that. Matter has its own natural laws that regulate it. Gravity. The laws that regulate physical matter, that of gravity, have no bearing upon the flow of energy. Which is why in December you don't hear people say, "No, don't put that light so high up on the tree. Gravity will never allow the electricity to flow up there." Of course not. Because gravity has no effect upon the flow of energy, of electricity. And conversely, neither do the principles of energy have any effect or bearing on the nature of physical matter, of gravity. Power has its own set of natural flows and principles. And it's these that I will go into more deeply here today. Where you have two fields of power, the field with a lesser intensity of charge will flow to the field of greater intensity of charge. Less intense flows to more intense charge. This is directly the opposite of energy, which flows from more intense to less intense. With power, less intensely charged fields flow to fields that are more intensely charged. That can be modified with attention. Now, by attention, I don't mean concentration. Rather, by attention we mean being present. So when we speak of being in attention, we're speaking of being fully present with whatever the event, the experience, the thought is. So where we hold our attention, power will flow. And when we hold attention in alignment with intent, power flows through that path of attention and makes manifest that intent. Now, as I've mentioned, power is life force charge, collected and concentrated. So we can say that wherever we hold our attention, there will power flow. Or wherever we hold our attention, there is our experience of life. Because life force is the basis of power. Wherever we hold our attention, there is our experience of life. Which leads to another one of the principles of power. And is the understanding that where there is an intense charge of power within our field, our tissues, our organs, that a thread of our attention, we have many such threads, a thread of our attention will become anchored into that charge. And whatever the nature or state of that charge is, whether it's life positive or life negative, our attention anchored into it is anchored into that perspective of life. So wherever we have attention anchored into a charge of power within us, we begin to perceive life from the perspective of the qualitative nature of that power. And so if that charge is one of joy and happiness, with our attention anchored into it, we begin to experience life from a joyful and happy place. If, however, it's anger and hostility, trauma, our thread of attention anchored into it begins to perceive life in the world around us from that perspective of that life negative state. Power and water have a natural affinity with each other. They draw each other to themselves. So these are the fundamental principles of power that we work with in our shamanic ways. More than just an understanding of them is the application of these principles. This incense that I'm burning is Palo Santo. I gather it when I'm down the Amazon of Peru. It's a wood, a tree that grows down there. I wish you could smell it. Oh, it's so sweet and wonderful. And we say it cleanses and makes sweet, like that. It just makes everything like that. So I want to begin here with sharing with you an experience, a manner in which you can experience your power. Let's begin by placing our palms about body width in front of us. Elbows not tight to the body, but away from the body just slightly. And very, very slowly, incrementally slowly, move your palms towards each other. Not too fast, just real slow. And as you move your hands closer and closer, you may find that you begin to experience a sensation between your hands, a tingling, an effervescence. Continue to move your hands closer. Don't touch your hands. Just move them closer and notice what you then experience. The most common experience will be a feeling of pressure, almost like holding a balloon between your hands, a blown up child's balloon, where it feels like there's a resistance as you move your hands closer together, like you're pushing against that balloon. Allow that to be and continue to move your hands even closer and closer. And it'll reach the point where your hands are kind of meeting so much resistance that it's pushing back on your hands. If you notice that. It's a feeling like holding two north poles of a magnet face to face. And they repel each other. They push each other away. Feel that. Move your hands even a bit closer. Again, refrain from touching your hands together. Just move them closer. And feel the intensity of that ball of power in your hands. Feel it as it intensifies, as you push, as you collapse, as you move together, as you concentrate. That field of power, of life force charge between your hands. Feel that. Feel that. And now on the count of 3, we're going to clap our hands together forcefully and draw our hands to our solar plexus. That's right below the sternum and above the belly button. 1, 2, 3. Breathe it in. You can draw your palms down to your lap. Close your eyes for a moment and just experience that. Feel that power, that same tingly force field within your solar plexus. And it will begin to expand and move throughout your body. You'll feel it even all the way down into your toes. Okay. That is your power. Our life force field, our personal power, has a negative ionic charge to it. So when we're holding our hands, the field of power that emanates from our hands each have a negative ionic charge. So as we move them closer together, those fields begin to interpenetrate. And just like two north poles of a magnet, they begin to repel, to push against each other. And so as you move your hands closer and closer together, you're causing those fields to interpenetrate, sending them into a state of activity. And then when you clap your hands together, it collapses those fields into one. As you breathe it into the solar plexus, the dynamo here, which is the collector of our life force charge. It's the storehouse of our life force charge. So we've contributed power to our field and to our body. That is one way in which you can increase your personal power, is through that very simple exercise I've just shared with you. Now, there are other ways of building one's power. Some of the simple and very accessible ones are through drinking water. Water and power have a natural affinity with each other. So when you drink water, when you drink live water, living water, you're drinking that water down, and this dynamo here in our solar plexus has a very intense charge to it, much greater than that of the water passing through. And so it pulls the life force charge from the water and holds it in this dynamo in our solar plexus. The water continues on through and does the functions of water in the cells in the body. However, because water and power have a natural affinity for each other, if you drink dead water, like bottled water, when you drink it, that water has no life force charge left in it. And so it draws power out of the solar plexus, not a vast amount, but it draws enough power to move it into a living state so that it's living water that is given to your cells once again. And so if you're drinking bottled water, I don't care how chemically pure you may consider it to be, it's dead. If water hasn't been moving for 3 days, it loses charge. It's no longer alive. So if you bought water, and again, it doesn't matter if it's Fiji water or Icelandic water, it doesn't matter where that water is from or what's been done to it. If it is sat in a bottle for 3 days, it's dead. And when you drink it, you're actually robbing vitality from your system in order to make that water at least a minimal amount of alive. Now the same is true, of course, of food. When we eat food, it's not just the physical matter, it's the life force charge within that food. And so if you are eating, let's say, canned peas versus fresh peas, which one is going to contribute more life force to your system? Of course, the live, living peas. Canned goods are very disruptive to the system in regards of power. So, a nice living salad. Wonderful. Contributes life force to your system. Though certain vegetables release more life force charge when they're cooked. Oftentimes these are the root vegetables in particular. Carrots and potatoes, squashes, though they're not root vegetables. Many foods release much more life force charge once they're cooked. And so experiencing your life force charge and that balance that occurs when you're eating the food and which contribute to your overall vitality and which deprive you of vitality is helpful to be aware of. I'm not one to give any rules or guidelines on what or how one should eat. It's a personal matter, a personal choice. Mine only here is to give a bit of an insight into the dynamics of power involved. There are other means of very intensely charging your life force field. There are means of breathing, power breathing. I'm not going to get into teaching that here today. It would take a whole hour just to do that instruction. But there are methodologies for empowerment. Imagine that your life force field, your field of power, which contained by a boundary is what we refer to as the soul. The soul is your life force charge contained, rather like a balloon. I'm going to use a metaphor here. Sound requires a medium through which it can resonate in order for it to be heard. Sound is incapable of transmitting through a vacuum. That's why when you see, Star Wars and Star Trek and they're out in space and they're having a battle and you hear all those big explosions, well, that's just fantasy. Because without an atmosphere minimally, if it's just a vacuum, there's no means for that sound to be transmitted. There would be no sounds in deep space. Likewise, our spirit is a frequency. So shamanically, when we refer to spirit, we're speaking of frequency. We each have our own unique frequency. Mine is distinct from yours, as yours is distinct from your mate or your children, your friends. Each of us have our own unique and distinct spirit frequency. And it remains the same, lifetime to lifetime to lifetime. It's unchanging. Spirit is pure, unsullied, unsulliable, untarnished, and untarnishable. Regardless of what we do through thought, deed, action, and behavior to create a corruption of our own soul thereby, of our own life force field. That is within our purview. And so if we are holding thoughts, feelings, let sit, unprocessed emotions, traumas, etc., that are heavy, traumatic, dissonant, these set our soul force, our life force field into a state of dissonance. We can experience that. They might migrate forth as visions, as voices, as memories, as thoughts, as feelings, as reactions. So when our spirit, a pure frequency, interacts with our soul, our life force charge, our field of power, you might say the song of our spirit is sung. As sound requires a medium to be transmitted through, so does spirit. The medium through which spirit is transmitted is soul. Imagine you take a balloon straight out of the package, lay it flat on the table in front of you. You lean over and go, "Oh!" That balloon just lays there flat. There's no sound vibrating through it at all. But if you take that balloon, blow it up taut and go, "Oh!" That balloon will go, "Oh!" For quite some time. It'll carry that resonance through. So is our soul, again, likened to that balloon. If our soul, if the power contained within our soul is weak, flaccid, not very charged up, and as our spirit, that singular frequency resonates through that flaccid field of our soul, there's not much for it to resonate through. And so there's not much expression of our spirit. Our spirit is only awake at a very low level. If, however, the power of our life force field, of our soul, is intensely charged, Then, when the frequency of our spirit moves through that intensely charged field of power, our soul, it is amplified, intensified, and our spirit sings its song into the world. If, however, our soul is muddied from old angers and judgments and fears and anxieties and old traumas and memories, and that muddiness muddies and muffles the expression of our spirit. As it moves through the muddiness of our soul, it takes on that secondary attribute of the disrupted, dysfunctional state of the soul. And so the song of our spirit is sung in a muddied, unclear manner. It might hit something and fractionate, shoot over there and shoot over there and shoot over there, so we don't get a clear, singular tone emitting. And this is why it behooves us to do that internal work by whatever means or method that you have available to you. I mean, certainly in our shamanic ways, we have many, many such methods and ceremonies and techniques for doing so. But whatever method you have available to clear up the inner self, that is clearing the soul of that muddiness, to enable the spirit to sing cleanly and clearly through our lives and into the world. When we understand this from the principles of power, you see how you can get a bigger picture and understanding of what's going on, and how we can apply that to the furtherance of the awakening of our spirit. So in a simplistic manner, it can be said that the greater the intensity of charge of power in our soul, the grander will be the expression of our spirit. And so the degree to which we are spiritually awakened is a function of the degree of personal power that we carry. The quality of our spiritual wakefulness is dependent upon the quality of that life force charge within our soul. Again, if it's murky and dissonant, filled with anxiety, hatreds, judgments, we might have a dynamic charge, but we're going to spew forth in a negative manner. Whereas if we have that same intensity of dynamic charge, we've done that internal work, and we come to that place where the song of our spirit sings sweetly through life and into the world. And what we broadcast is our true internal state. Joy, compassion, love. Thank you for participating with me here today, for taking the time to listen in. And if you leave a question in the comments to this live stream, the recording that will be posted, I will do my best in a timely manner to respond to those questions and get back to you. Please do keep them relevant to the topic discussed here. And be on the lookout for notices of further Wisdom Fire teachings, storytellings, drummings, and songs. So I'm going to leave you here with another bit of drumming. Thank you. Blessings on your evening.